The company chose nepotism over loyalty, and it's paying the price.
Hey, welcome back to Story Glory. Here, I'll share submitted stories, Reddit posts, stories I find on the net, as well as a few of my own. If you like the story, please be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. In this video, everything seems fine. Until one decision changes the entire course of a department, and a company quietly begins to unravel.
I, 34 male, used to work for a local shipping company that's been around for decades. Not flashy, not global, but it had deep roots in our region and played a crucial role in getting freight, packages, and industrial shipments to clients reliably. But what most people on the outside never saw was the brittle skeleton holding the company together. A legacy logistics system that was ancient even by outdated standards. It was originally built for Windows 7. And when I say that, I don't just mean it ran on Windows 7. I mean the thing was designed back in the Windows 7 era, using frameworks and code that most developers today wouldn't touch without gloves on. Years ago, when Windows 10 came out, our company decided to get ahead of the curve and upgrade, which was rare, and honestly we were lucky. The legacy software somehow still functioned on the new OS, but barely. Glitches, crashes, and weird workarounds became the norm. Still, it was running. And in a company like this, if it ain't broke usually meant, don't touch it unless it explodes. Now rewind about 15 years ago. Someone had tried updating the software to a newer version. The result? Catastrophic failure. The system collapsed mid-cycle, shipments were delayed, and clients were furious. The internal IT team, which I was a part of back then, scrambled to roll it back to the last stable version. We barely made it out without irreparable damage. After that, upper management made a blanket rule: no upgrades, no changes, lock it down. A few years later, leadership pulled the trigger on modernizing operations, their version of cost-cutting, and shut down the internal IT department entirely. They brought in an MSP, managed service provider, to handle everything tech-related. That move wiped out an entire department of dedicated people who knew our infrastructure inside and out. I was one of the very few who was spared. I was allowed to transfer into a role in the logistics department, probably because I was young, adaptable, and knew too much about the legacy software to cut loose. At first, I figured I'd just ride the wave and keep my head down. But over time, I leaned in. I learned how the logistics side of the company really worked. Scheduling, routing, fleet management, driver dispatch, vendor relationships. I got close to the teams on the ground and the clients we served. I worked hard, and people noticed. Eventually, I earned a lead position and built my own team. But more importantly, I became the only person left in the company who knew how to maintain, troubleshoot, and understand the legacy system. Even the MSP came to me when something broke, and it broke often. Without my patchwork and know-how, the whole thing would have collapsed years ago. Then came the turning point. One of our assistant vice presidents, someone who had been with the company for over 2 decades, had to step down suddenly due to illness. It was a big blow. This wasn't just a title. This AVP ran a significant chunk of our East Coast logistics ops and had deep relationships with the staff, the vendors, and even our biggest clients. Naturally, several experienced managers and leads, myself included, submitted our names for the promotion. We were a tight-knit leadership group. We agreed early on that no matter who got it, we'd support the decision. We all knew how much work everyone had put in, and there was a sense of mutual respect that's rare in corporate environments. Then, nothing. No updates, no internal interviews, no shortlists, just silence. For over a month, we heard nothing from senior leadership. And then, out of nowhere, came the announcement. Darren, son of the CFO, would be our new AVP of logistics. Now, listen. At first, no one flipped out. Darren had joined the company about a year earlier. He was fresh out of grad school and had been shadowing people across departments. And truthfully, he seemed like a decent guy. He wasn't arrogant, he wasn't rude, and he didn't strut around with entitlement, at least not outwardly. But deep down, everyone felt it. That shared sting of being overlooked, dismissed, and replaced by someone who had never really done the work. Someone who never led a route optimization project, never sat with a frustrated client, never dealt with the fallout of a scheduling failure. Even the people who liked Darren started to withdraw. That promotion didn't just impact a single role, it shattered the idea that hard work, loyalty, and experience would ever matter. Morale collapsed. People started leaving. First, a few dispatchers, then senior coordinators who had been here for a decade or more. Some quietly took other jobs, others left in anger, citing no future here as they walked out the door. We lost talent we couldn't afford to lose. Still, I tried to be diplomatic. I requested a meeting with senior leadership and voiced my concerns. I didn't badmouth Darren. I told them plainly that he wasn't ready for the role. Not because he was malicious or lazy, but because he lacked the operational understanding and leadership experience. I warned them about the drop in morale, the loss of trust, and what it meant for our department's long-term health. Their response? We're confident Darren will grow into the role. Give it time. That was it. They didn't want a conversation. They wanted obedience. Apparently, Darren heard about my meeting, and that's when everything changed. Suddenly, he was on my case about everything, nitpicking my reports, questioning my decisions, overriding routine calls I made without incident for years. He'd hover during my meetings, insert himself into email chains, and undermine me in front of my own team. The thing is, he still had no idea how the legacy software worked. And even with all his power plays, when that system glitched, he came to me.
Eventually, it became too much. I went to HR and filed a formal complaint for harassment and retaliation. I even included email chains, timestamps, and specific examples. That was the moment I realized just how insulated Darren was. Within a week, I was called into his office. There was no warning, no feedback, no performance issues, just cold, corporate detachment. "We're in an at-will state," he said. "I don't need a reason to let you go." And that was it. After nearly a decade of holding this fragile tech ecosystem together, building relationships, and carrying a department through transition after transition, I was gone. But here's the part that really hurts. Right before I was fired, I had started developing a migration plan. You see, Microsoft had recently announced that Windows 10 would reach end of support soon. I knew, without a doubt, that our legacy system wouldn't survive a move to Windows 11. It wasn't compatible, and there were no vendor updates on the horizon. This wasn't a guess, it was a fact. So I put together a roadmap: how to gradually phase out the legacy system, which modern platform could replace it, what features we'd need to customize, and how to transition without disrupting client services. I even projected costs and created an 18-month deployment timeline. That plan walked out the door with me. Since then, I've heard from old coworkers, the ones still hanging on, the system's breaking, the MSP is overwhelmed, the routes are chaotic, client complaints are increasing, and Darren, he's still trying to fix everything with PowerPoint slides and buzzwords. Meanwhile, I'm now working at a smaller but growing logistics firm across town. They hired me as a senior systems strategist, gave me budget, freedom, and respect. I'm helping build a modern logistics platform from scratch. No duct tape, no panic, no legacy ghosts. So yeah, Nepotism might have stolen that title, but they lost the one person who knew how to keep their aging empire alive. And from what I hear, the cracks are starting to show.
What do you think? Was he out of line for going to HR? Or is Darren never fit to lead in the first place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. Thanks for tuning in to Story Glory, where every story leaves a mark. If you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tales that captivate, inspire, or just make you think. Got a story suggestion or something to share? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, keep the stories alive.